At exactly 3:14 a.m., the cargo ship Mercy Queen appeared on radar 6 miles off the coast of Maine. That should have been impossible. The Mercy Queen had vanished 38 years earlier. Every member of its crew had been declared dead. Its registration had been cancelled. Its insurance claim had been paid. Its name had been removed from every active maritime database. And yet, on that morning, every radio along the coast picked up the same distress signal. Static, breathing, then a man's voice whispering, "This is Mercy Queen," requesting permission to dock. The Coast Guard tried to respond. No answer. They tried again. Still nothing. Then, through the static, the same voice returned. "Lower this time. Closer. Do not come aboard. We are not alone anymore. My name is Jonah Hale. Back then, I was a rescue swimmer with the Coast Guard stationed out of Portland. I had heard strange calls before. False maydays, drunk fishermen, broken radios, repeating old transmissions. Once we responded to a distress beacon tied to a dead seal. The ocean has a sense of humor, a cruel one, but nothing prepared me for the Mercy Queen. The first thing I remember is the alarm, not the normal call tone, the emergency one, the kind that pulls you out of sleep before your brain understands why your body is already moving. Red light filled the bunk room. Boots hit the floor. Someone shouted my name. By the time I reached operations, Commander Reeves was standing over the radar display, with both hands planted on the table. He was a hard man to scare. 26 years in the service. Hurricane rescues. Ship fires. Bodies pulled from winter water. I had seen him drink coffee beside a corpse bag without blinking. But that morning, he looked pale. "Unknown vessel," he said. 6 miles east of Blackwater Point. That name made the room go quiet. Blackwater Point was where the Mercy Queen had last been seen in 1986. Reeves pointed at the screen. A bright shape pulsed on the radar. Large, slow-moving. Too big to be a fishing boat. Too slow to be running from weather. "Any AIS?" I asked. "Nothing." "A visual?" "Fog bank." "Radio contact?" Reeves looked at the speaker, as if it might answer for him. The room filled with static. Then the voice came again. "This is Mercy Queen. Requesting permission to dock." A young communications officer named Perez leaned toward the microphone. "Mercy Queen, this is United States Coast Guard Station Portland. Please confirm your position, crew status, and nature of emergency." Static. Then, "Permission to dock." Perez swallowed. "Mercy Queen, you are not cleared for harbor entry. Confirm number of persons aboard." The speaker hissed. For several seconds, no one moved. Then a second voice came through. Not the first man. A woman. Very quiet. "Too many." The transmission cut. Commander Reeves straightened. "Launch the cutter." No one questioned him. At 3:32 a.m. we were on the water. The fog was thick enough to swallow the bowlights. Our cutter, the Halcyon, pushed through black water while radar guided us toward the contact. The ocean was calm, almost unnaturally calm. No chop, no wind. Just slow swells lifting us and lowering us like something breathing beneath the hull. There were 6 of us on board. Commander Reeves, Perez, myself, Petty Officer Daniel Moss, Engineer Cole Baird, and a medic named Leah Voss. Leah stood beside me near the rail, tightening her gloves. "You ever heard of the Mercy Queen?" she asked. "Only the story. Ship vanished, right? Cargo vessel, December 1986, left Halifax, never reached Boston." "Storm?" I looked into the fog. That's the strange part. There wasn't one. The official version was mechanical failure. Unofficially, fishermen claimed the Mercy Queen sent one final transmission before disappearing. Not a mayday, not coordinates, just 7 words. "We can still see the shore." Then nothing. The problem was that the ship had been almost 90 miles out at the time. There should have been no shore to see. At 4:01 a.m., radar said we were within 500 yards. We still saw nothing. No lights, no silhouette, no movement. Then our radio crackled. The voice returned. "Halcyon." Everyone froze. Reeves grabbed the microphone. Unknown vessel, identify yourself. The reply came immediately. Do not send Jonah Hale. My blood went cold. No one on that ship should have known my name. Perez turned slowly and looked at me. Leah whispered, Jonah. Reeves spoke into the mic again. Who is this? The voice breathed through static. He hears the water. Then the fog ahead of us lit up. Not with lightning, not with dawn, with ship lights. One by one, yellow windows appeared in the fog, stacked high above the water. A bow emerged. Black, rust-streaked, huge. The Mercy Queen drifted toward us without engine noise. Its hull rose from the fog like a cliff. White letters peeled across the side. Mercy Queen. Below the name, barnacles clung in thick gray sheets. Seaweed hung from the anchor chains. The deck railings were bent. The cargo cranes were frozen in place. Every window glowed, but no one stood on deck. No crew. No signalman. No captain. Just the ship. Waiting. Reeves ordered us to circle once before boarding. As we moved along the starboard side, our floodlight swept across the hull. That was when I noticed the scratches. Not rust, not damage from rocks. Words, carved into the metal, over and over. Let us off. Let us off. Let us off. Some carvings were old, filled with salt and corrosion. Others looked fresh. The letters still shone silver where the metal had been cut. Leah made the sign of the cross. Moss muttered, Nope, absolutely not. But Reeves had already made the call. We board, assess, and withdraw. No one goes alone. No heroics. The Mercy Queen had a pilot ladder hanging down its side. It looked recently lowered. Wet rope. Clean rungs. No rot. That was somehow worse than if it had been decayed. Moss climbed first. Then me. The ladder swayed against the hull. Halfway up, I felt the ship vibrate beneath my hands. Not from engines. From inside. A low hum. Almost like a crowd whispering behind a wall. I reached the deck and swung over the rail. The moment my boots touched the Mercy Queen, the radio on my vest burst into static. Then the woman's voice whispered, One more. I turned. The deck was empty. The air smelled wrong. Not just salt and rust. Cooking oil. Diesel. Wet rope. And underneath all of it, something sweet. Rotten fruit. Flowers left too long in a closed room. The others climbed aboard. Reeves checked his watch. Time. Perez looked at hers. 4:18. Moss frowned. Mine says 3:14. So did mine. The second hand was moving, but it kept circling the same minute. 3:14. Again. And again. And again. Reeves noticed but said nothing. That was the first sign he was more afraid than he wanted us to know. We entered through a door marked Crew Access. The corridor beyond was lit by dim emergency bulbs. Water dripped from overhead pipes. The walls were painted green, though most of the paint had peeled away. Our boots echoed too loudly. Every door we passed was closed. Every nameplate was blank. Leah stopped beside one. Jonah, she pointed. The nameplate on the nearest cabin door had changed. It now read, J. Hale. I stared at it. Moss reached for the handle. Don't, I said. He paused. From inside the cabin came a knock. 1, 2, 3. Then my own voice said from behind the door, Open up, I'm cold. No one moved. Reeves grabbed Moss by the shoulder and pulled him back. We keep moving. The voice inside the cabin laughed. Not loudly, just enough for us to hear it through the metal door. We found the mess hall 10 minutes later. The lights inside were on. 14 bowls of soup sat on the tables. Steam rose from everyone. 14 metal spoons beside them. 14 cups of coffee. 14 chairs pulled out as if the crew had just stood up. Perez whispered, How many crew were on Mercy Queen? Reeves answered without looking away from the tables. 14. Moss touched one bowl. Hot. Leah checked another. Same. Baird moved toward the kitchen. I followed. The stove burners were on. A pot of soup simmered gently. There was no cook. No footprints in the grease on the floor. No open pantry. No sign anyone had been there. On the counter, a knife lay beside a cutting board. Something had been chopped into small pieces. At first I thought it was meat. Then I saw the buttons, small white shirt buttons mixed into the red pulp. Baird gagged and backed away. From the mess hall, Perez called out, "Commander!" We returned. She stood beside the far wall looking at a bulletin board. Pinned to it were crew photographs. 14 men and women smiling in faded color. Below each photo was a name. Captain Elias Rourke, First Mate Helen Price, Engineer Samuel Trent, Cook Marcus Bell, Radio Officer Victor Lane, and others. But as we watched, the faces in the photographs began to blur. Not all at once, slowly, as if someone were rubbing them away from behind the paper. Leah whispered, "We need to leave." Then every spoon in the mess hall moved. Not far, just turned slightly. All 14 spoons pointed toward the same door. A stairwell leading down. Reeves lifted his flashlight. "We check the bridge first." "No," Moss said. Everyone looked at him. He was staring at the bowls. "The soup is getting colder." That sounded stupid. Then I understood. The steam was gone. All at once. The room had gone cold. Behind us, the crew access door slammed shut. From somewhere deep below, the ship came a sound. A ship horn. Low. Massive. Close enough to make the bowls tremble. Then the intercom crackled overhead. A man's voice spoke. Calm. Formal. "Attention all passengers. Transfer will begin shortly." Reeves looked up. "Passengers?" The intercom clicked again. The voice returned. "Please remain where you are. The shore is not accepting arrivals," Moss whispered. "What the hell does that mean?" No one answered, because at that moment from the corridor outside the mess hall we heard footsteps. Bare feet, many of them, walking slowly toward us. The footsteps stopped just outside the mess hall. No one breathed. The ship seemed to hold its own breath with us. Commander Reeves slowly raised 2 fingers, signaling complete silence. The emergency lights buzzed overhead. Water dripped somewhere beyond the corridor. Then, another step. Bare skin against wet steel. Soft. Deliberate. One person. Then another. Then another. The footsteps were perfectly synchronized, like a crowd that had rehearsed how to walk together. Perez slowly aimed her flashlight toward the open doorway. Nothing. Only the narrow corridor disappearing into darkness. Then a shadow crossed the floor. Not quickly. It simply passed beneath the doorway, like someone walking by without looking inside. Another shadow followed, then another. None of them made any attempt to enter. They were only passing. Toward the stern. Toward whatever waited deeper inside the Mercy Queen. Leah whispered so quietly I almost didn't hear her. "How many?" I counted. 1, 2, 3. The shadows continued. 7, 9, 12, 14. Exactly 14. When the last shadow disappeared, the footsteps stopped completely. The silence that followed felt even worse. Commander Reeves stepped into the corridor. His flashlight swept left. Empty. Right. Empty. The steel floor glistened with seawater. Nothing else, except footprints. Wet footprints. 14 pairs. All barefoot. Every print pointed away from us. Not toward the deck. Toward the lower levels. Toward the engine room. "They want us to follow," Moss muttered. "No," Reeves said. "They expect us to." He crouched beside one footprint. The water inside it had not begun drying. Fresh. Very fresh. Almost as if whoever made it had passed only seconds earlier. Baird suddenly frowned. "Commander." "What?" "My radio." Everyone looked down. Every portable radio had switched itself on. No one had touched them. Static filled the corridor. Then, one by one, different voices began speaking. Each radio played a different conversation. A woman crying. A child laughing. Someone shouting coordinates. A man praying. Another screaming for help. All at once. Leah turned hers off. The voice continued, coming from the speaker even without power. Perez covered her ears. "What is happening?" The static abruptly vanished. Then all 6 radios spoke together. "Welcome aboard." Every light on the ship flickered. For less than a second, the corridor changed. The peeling paint disappeared. The rust vanished. The lights became bright. Fresh white walls. Clean floors. The Mercy Queen looked brand new. Crew members walked past us carrying clipboards and coffee mugs. None of them acknowledged us. A cook pushed a food cart toward the galley. Two engineers laughed about something neither of us could hear. A young sailor carrying a toolbox walked directly through moss as if he was smoke. Then everything snapped back. Rust, darkness, silence. Moss stumbled backward. You all saw that. Nobody answered. Nobody needed to. We all had. Commander Reeves checked his watch again. Still 3:14. Exactly. The second hand continued moving, always returning to the same place. Bridge, Reeves ordered. Now, we climbed 3 decks. Every corridor looked nearly identical. Every few minutes we passed another crew photograph. Every time, one more face had disappeared. Not covered. Not damaged. Gone. Leaving only blank uniforms. Blank hats. Blank spaces where people should have been. Leah stopped beside one frame. There were 14, she counted. There are only 12 now. Perez frowned. What do you mean? 2 are missing. I looked closer. She was right. 2 empty spaces remained where photographs should have been. No torn paper. No marks. As though no one had ever stood there. The names beneath them were changing too. Letters slowly fading. One of the blank spaces now read, Unknown. The second one was becoming readable. Jonah Hale. I stepped backward. No one spoke. Because every one of them could see it happening, letter by letter. My own name appearing beneath an empty photograph. Then, the ship's bell rang. One deep strike. The sound rolled through every deck. A voice echoed over the intercom. Crew count updated. Pause. 13 aboard. Everyone froze. There are 6 of us, Perez whispered. Another pause. The voice returned. Correction. Longer pause. 14. Somewhere below. A door slammed. Then another. Then another. Every watertight door throughout the ship began closing, one after another. Heavy steel echoed through the hull. Bang, 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 bang. Like the ship was sealing itself. Baird grabbed the nearest handle. Locked. Leah tried another. Locked. Perez looked toward Commander Reeves. What do we do? Before he could answer, we heard someone running. Fast. Coming from above. Boots. Not bare feet. Military boots. Someone was sprinting down the bridge stairwell. Reeves immediately raised his flashlight. Coast Guard! No answer. The footsteps grew louder. Closer. Then a man burst around the corner. He wore a modern Coast Guard rescue suit. Orange flotation vest. Wet boots. Helmet. Flashlight. Everything identical to ours. He stopped the instant he saw us. His face drained of color. Then he pointed directly at me. You came back. I stared at him. I had never seen this man before. He looked exactly my age. Same build. Same haircut. Same scar above the left eyebrow. Then I realized why. The man wasn't a stranger. He was me, only older. Older by maybe 20 years. His beard was streaked with gray. His rescue suit hung loose on a thinner body. His eyes looked exhausted, like someone who hadn't slept in decades. He raised one shaking hand. You have to leave before they ring the second bell. Commander Reeves stepped between us. Who are you? The older version of me never looked away. They already know your names. He swallowed. When the second bell rings, his voice broke. Don't answer if anyone calls you. Behind him, deep within the bridge, another bell began to swing. One slow movement, preparing to strike, and somewhere beyond that sound, something impossibly large shifted beneath the ship. Not in the water, inside it. The bell struck once. The sound rolled through the Mercy Queen like thunder trapped inside steel. Every light went out. Not gradually. Instantly. One moment the corridors glowed with weak emergency lighting. The next, absolute darkness. Someone cursed. Someone else stumbled into a wall. Then, every flashlight switched on by itself. Not because we pressed the buttons. They simply came alive together. 6 beams. 6 trembling circles of white cutting through the black. Except there were 7, Leah noticed first. There, she pointed toward the far end of the corridor. Another flashlight beam shone back at us. Same brightness, same color. Whoever held it remained hidden around the corner. Commander Reeves shouted, "Identify yourself." No answer. The beam moved, slowly, almost inviting us to follow. Perez whispered, "It's another rescue team." "No," the older version of me said immediately. "It isn't." His breathing had become ragged. "You have to stop following lights." Moss looked between us. "Who the hell are you?" The older Jonah hesitated, then quietly answered, "I boarded this ship on October 6th. He looked directly at me. "The same day you did." The words hit me harder than the cold. "No, you haven't yet." "I am." "You will." Silence. Then he said the sentence I still remember word for word. "Time doesn't move correctly on the Mercy Queen." Commander Reeves stepped closer. "Explain." The older Jonah glanced nervously toward the bridge. "They don't trap ships. They trap moments." Another deep vibration passed beneath our boots. Not the engines. Something larger, as though the entire ocean had taken one slow breath. The 7th flashlight disappeared around the corner. Then we heard footsteps, running, fast, away from us. "Bare feet!" Commander Reeves ignored the warning. "Move!" He sprinted after the light. Instinct took over. The rest of us followed. The older Jonah shouted behind us, "Don't!" Too late. The bridge door stood open. Inside, everything looked untouched. Maps remained spread across navigation tables. Coffee mugs rested beside charts. The wheel still pointed 3 degrees west. Radar screens glowed green. Engine indicators all showed full ahead. But outside the windows, there was no ocean, only fog. An endless wall of white surrounding the ship. No horizon, no waves, nothing. Perez moved toward the captain's chair. "It's still powered." Baird frowned. "Impossible." The engines hadn't made a sound since we'd arrived. Yet every gauge suggested the ship was sailing at full speed. Reeves picked up the captain's logbook. Its pages were swollen from moisture. The final written entry read, December 11th, 1986. Fog increasing. Shore remains visible. Crew becoming restless. Passengers asking strange questions. Passengers? Reeves flipped backward through older pages. There were no passengers listed on the manifest. Only 14 crew. Then another page. December 12th. They came aboard during the fog. No launch observed. No vessel sighted. They simply appeared standing on the bow. We did not invite them. Leah leaned closer. "What does that mean?" Another page. December 13th. Crew count no longer matches. Nobody remembers which names are missing. The handwriting became shakier. December 14th. Do not answer if someone calls you after midnight, even if they know your name, especially if they sound familiar. Perez quietly whispered, "Commander." She pointed toward the bridge windows. There, standing outside on the forward deck, were 14 people, perfectly still, facing us. Their clothing dripped seawater. Old uniforms, oilskins, raincoats, captain's jacket, engineer overalls, cook's apron, every one of them soaked, everyone barefoot. Their heads hung low, their faces hidden. Moss counted under his breath. But 12, 13, 14. The captain's log slipped from Reeves's hands. The figures outside moved together, not walking, not running. They simply raised their heads. Every face was pale, every pair of eyes completely white. No pupils, no iris, only white. Leah gasped. One of them smiled. Then all 14 smiled. Exactly the same smile. Wide. Unnaturally wide. The bridge radio crackled. "This is Captain Elias Rourke." The voice sounded calm. Professional. "I'd like permission to bring my passengers ashore." Commander Reeves grabbed the microphone. "Captain Rourke, identify your passengers." Long silence. Then, they're the ones who answered. The transmission ended. Outside, the 14 figures vanished. Not one by one, all together, as though erased. Baird suddenly shouted. "Behind us!" We spun around. The bridge door was slowly closing, not by itself. A pale hand held the edge. Then another, then another. 14 white hands wrapped around the steel door frame. Pulling, slowly, patiently. Commander Reeves threw his shoulder against the door. "Help!" All 6 of us pushed. The hands never struggled. They simply continued pulling with impossible strength. Metal groaned. The hinges bent. Perez screamed. One of the hands wasn't pale anymore. It was normal, human. It wore an orange Coast Guard sleeve, exactly like ours. I looked closer. There was a name patch. J. Hale. The older Jonah closed his eyes. They've started copying us. The bridge lights blinked once, twice. Then every monitor came alive. Every screen showed the same image. Not the bridge, not the sea. A live camera feed from somewhere high above the Mercy Queen, as if another ship, or something far taller, were watching us from directly overhead. Commander Reeves slowly looked upward. "There isn't a helicopter." "No," the older Jonah whispered. "There never is." Then something crossed above the ship. Not flying, swimming. Its shadow moved across every monitor. Enormous. Longer than the Mercy Queen itself. None of us saw its body, only its shadow, gliding silently through the white fog above us. Every radio on the bridge activated simultaneously. Not static, not voices. Just one sentence, repeated over, and over, and over. "Final boarding will begin in 15 minutes. No one spoke. Because every one of us understood whatever was coming. The Mercy Queen had not been waiting to reach shore. It had been waiting for enough people to come aboard. No one moved. 15 minutes. That was all the ship had given us, or whatever controlled it. Commander Reeves took a slow breath and forced himself to think. "Options." Nobody answered. "There are always options." Baird finally spoke. "We abandon ship." Reeves nodded. "Agreed." He turned toward the bridge windows. We launched the emergency life raft. The older version of me laughed. Not because it was funny, because he'd heard those words before. "It won't let you." "What?" "It needs witnesses." His eyes never left mine. "It never lets everyone leave." Silence. Then a loud metallic crash echoed somewhere below us. Deck 7. Another. Deck 6. Then another. Deck 5. Something massive was climbing upward through the ship. Not using stairs. Not elevators. Straight through the hull itself. Steel screamed. Bulkheads flexed. Somewhere deep below, an alarm finally came alive. A calm, computerized voice echoed through every speaker. "Hull breach detected. Pause. Depth unknown. Pause. Sea level unknown." Leah frowned. "What does that even mean?" The older Jonah whispered. "You're about to find out." Commander Reeves ordered us back to the main deck. The bridge doors were finally free. The pale hands had disappeared. Only long, wet fingerprints remained across the steel. We hurried through the corridors. This time, the ship no longer looked abandoned. Doors stood open. Cabins lit from inside. Music drifted softly through the halls. Old jazz. Someone laughing. A television playing. The Mercy Queen looked alive. Every room appeared occupied. Yet, whenever a flashlight entered one, it became empty again. Perez accidentally looked into cabin 11. She froze. "What is it?" She didn't answer. Leah grabbed her shoulder. Perez slowly pointed inside. We looked. Nothing. Just an empty bunk. A locker. A chair. Then, the rocking chair moved. Very gently. Forward. Back. Forward. Back. No wind. No sound. Just movement. Reeves pulled Perez away. "Keep moving." Nobody argued. But as we descended another stairwell, the temperature suddenly changed. Warm. Almost comfortable. Like walking into someone's home. The smell hit us immediately. Fresh bread. Coffee. Bacon. Breakfast. "Impossible," Moss whispered. "I smell pancakes." He sounded confused. Not frightened. Hungry. The corridor ahead opened into another mess hall. This one was full. People sat eating breakfast. 14 crew members, exactly matching the photographs we'd seen earlier. Talking, laughing, reading newspapers, drinking coffee. Completely unaware of us, Captain Elias Rourke stood at the serving counter speaking with the cook. Helen Price laughed at something one of the engineers said. Someone switched on the radio. A weather report began playing. December 12th, 1986. Sunny skies. Light fog expected overnight. Nothing unusual, Leah whispered. Are we seeing the past? The older Jonah slowly shook his head. No. Captain Rourke suddenly stopped talking. His smile disappeared. One by one, every crew member stopped moving. Forks froze halfway to mouths. Coffee cups stopped in midair. Conversations ended. Without turning their heads, all 14 sets of eyes shifted toward us. The room remained completely silent. Then, Captain Rourke smiled. Not kindly, not angrily, knowingly. He raised his coffee cup. You're early. Every crew member stood. Chairs scraped backward together. Perfectly synchronized, Reeves shouted, "Run!" Nobody waited. We sprinted back into the corridor. Behind us! There were no footsteps, no shouting, nothing. That somehow made it worse. When I dared glance over my shoulder, they were still standing in the doorway, watching us leave, not chasing, waiting, as if they already knew exactly where we would end up. The main deck should have been only one level above us. Instead, we climbed 4 staircases, then 6, then 8. Every landing displayed the same sign. Deck 4. Baird slammed his fist against the wall. We're going in circles. No, the older Jonah answered. The ship changes. Leah looked around. How? It gets bigger. Nobody laughed, because we all felt it. The corridors weren't the same length anymore. Docker numbers had changed. Deck plans no longer matched. The Mercy Queen had become larger. Impossible. Eventually, we reached a door leading outside. Commander Reeves shoved it open. Fresh air, rain, ocean. We spilled onto the deck. For one glorious second, everything looked normal. Black sea, gray sky, our Coast Guard cutter floating beside the ship. The Halcyon! Perez cried. We made it! The cutter's floodlights were on, engines idling, crew standing along the rail, waving. Commander Reeves grabbed the emergency radio. Halcyon! Prepare to receive survivors. Someone aboard waved harder. Leah smiled for the first time in hours. They found us. The older Jonah grabbed my arm so hard it hurt. Don't answer. What? Count them. I looked. 6 figures stood aboard the Halcyon. Then I realized something. There had only been 4 people left on the cutter. Not 6. I counted again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Every figure wore Coast Guard gear. Every figure waved. Then, all 6 waved. At exactly the same speed. Perfectly synchronized. Nobody waves like that. Commander Reeves raised one hand. The 6 figures instantly stopped waving. At the same moment. Then, they all tilted their heads. Exactly 45 degrees. Like mannequins, the older Jonah whispered. They've copied the cutter. The radio screamed. Not crackled. Screamed. A distorted emergency broadcast erupted from every speaker. Do not transfer personnel. Static. Repeat. Static. The rescue vessel is no longer the rescue vessel. The 6 figures aboard the Halcyon smiled. Every one of them. Then, they began climbing over the rail. Not into the sea. Onto nothing. They simply stepped off the ship and walked across the surface of the water toward us. Not sinking. Not swimming. Walking. Slowly. Patiently. 6 identical rescue workers. Their orange uniforms dripping seawater. Faces growing clearer with every step. Commander Reeves stared. Oh, God! Because the 6 figures weren't strangers. They were us. Every member of our boarding team. Including me. Only older. Much older. Every one of them looked exhausted. Sunken eyes. gray hair, torn rescue suits. They continued walking across the ocean. Coming home. To the Mercy Queen. The older versions of us never hurried. They didn't need to. The ocean carried them. Each step across the black water was perfectly steady, as though they had walked that same path 1,000 times before. Commander Reeves stood frozen. His older self reached the hull first. Graybeard, deep wrinkles around his eyes, the same scar beneath his chin. The older Reeves looked up at him with something that resembled pity. Then he spoke. You still think you're here to rescue someone? Commander Reeves finally found his voice. What happened to you? The older man smiled faintly. I stayed. Silence. Then he added, You all do. The 6 older versions climbed aboard without using the pilot ladder. They simply stepped onto the steel hull, and gravity seemed to accept them. No effort, no hesitation. The ship welcomed them. The moment their boots touched the deck, the Mercy Queen shuddered. Somewhere deep below, something answered. A low rumble rolled upward through the hull. Not machinery, a heartbeat. One, slow. Heartbeat! Leah looked at me. Did you feel that? Before I could answer, another heartbeat. Closer, louder. The entire deck flexed beneath our feet. The Mercy Queen wasn't vibrating. It was breathing. Commander Reeves raised his pistol. Nobody moves! The older Reeves ignored him completely. Instead, he walked directly toward his younger self, stopping only a few feet away. The resemblance was unsettling. Even the way they stood was identical. Hands behind the back, weight on the left foot. The older Reeves quietly asked, What day is it? Commander Reeves frowned. October 6th. The older man nodded. I remember. You remember what? This conversation. Everyone looked between them. The older Reeves slowly closed his eyes. I told myself not to board. He opened them again. I didn't listen. Commander Reeves swallowed. What are you talking about? You think this is the first time? The words hung in the cold air. Then, the older Reeves pointed toward the ocean. Look. The fog shifted. For the first time, we could see beyond it. The sea stretched endlessly beneath a gray sky. But we were no longer alone. Ships, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Old wooden sailing ships, modern container vessels, fishing boats, naval destroyers, cruise liners, rusted submarines sitting impossibly on the surface. Everyone drifting silently. Everyone facing the Mercy Queen. No movement, no lights, no radio traffic. Just waiting, Leah whispered. How many? The older Jonah answered before anyone else could. They're all waiting for permission. Permission for what? He looked toward the horizon. To reach shore. But then we noticed the people. Every ship was occupied. Not moving, not speaking. Figures stood along every rail, watching us. Thousands upon thousands of silent passengers. Some wore Victorian clothing. Some wore military uniforms from forgotten wars. Some wore modern life jackets. Others looked as though they had come straight from cruise vacations. Decades, centuries, all standing together, none of them blinking. Perez began crying. Oh my God. The older Leah gently touched her younger self's shoulder. You'll stop crying eventually. Leah jerked away. Don't touch me. I know. The older medic smiled sadly. I said exactly that. Without warning. Every ship on the horizon sounded its horn, one after another. The ocean exploded with noise. Deep foghorns, steam whistles, metallic sirens, ancient bells. The combined sound shook the sky itself. The Mercy Queen answered. Its own horn roared louder than all the others. The sea became perfectly still. Not calm, still. The waves stopped moving. Spray froze in the air. Rain hung motionless like glass. Even the gull circling overhead stopped flapping. It simply remained suspended above us. Time itself seemed to hesitate. Only we continued moving. The older Jonah looked upward. It heard us. Heard who? I asked. He never answered, because something enormous moved beneath the frozen ocean. Far below the surface, a circular shadow expanded. Not swimming, rising. The water bulged outward, not violently, slowly, patiently, as if something beneath the Atlantic was standing up. The ships around us all tilted slightly inward, not from waves, from gravity. Something beneath the sea was so vast, the ocean itself bent toward it. Commander Reeves whispered. "That's impossible," the older Reeves quietly replied. "That's why nobody believes survivors." The ship's intercom clicked alive. A calm female voice spoke. "Attention." Pause. "Docking window opens in 12 minutes. Another pause. Final passenger count is incomplete." Silence. Then, "We are still missing 6. Every speaker on the ship repeated the sentence. "Missing 6. Missing 6. Missing 6. The older Jonah looked at me. "This is where it starts changing." "What changes?" "You." He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small object, a silver Coast Guard badge, bent almost in half. He handed it to me. It was mine, not identical. Mine, the scratch across the back. The initials I'd carved during training. Everything. I stared at it. "I still have mine." "I know." He looked tired. So did I. I reached for my own badge. It was gone. The pocket was empty. Slowly, I looked back at the older version. He smiled. "It never lets you own two." Somewhere behind us, a child laughed. Every head turned. Standing near the stern, a little girl in a yellow raincoat watched us. Maybe 8 years old. Barefoot. Dark hair soaked against her face. She held a small stuffed whale beneath one arm. No one had seen her board. No one had seen her arrive. She smiled, then quietly asked, "Is this the ship that goes home?" No one answered. The older Jonah closed his eyes. "Don't talk to her." The little girl tilted her head. "But I'm lost." Leah took one step forward instinctively. "I'm a medic." The older Leah grabbed her younger self's wrist so violently she nearly fell. "No." The little girl's smile widened. She looked disappointed. Then she whispered. "My mommy answered." She slowly raised one hand and pointed toward the horizon. There, far beyond the waiting fleet, another light had appeared. Not white, not yellow, blue. A lighthouse, standing where no land existed. Its beam swept once across the ocean. Every ship turned toward it, at exactly the same moment, as though obeying an order. The Mercy Queen answered with its own horn. The little girl giggled. They opened the harbor, and somewhere beneath the ocean, something unimaginably large opened one eye. Nobody spoke. Nobody even breathed. The blue lighthouse stood impossibly far beyond the fleet, too distant to be real, too bright to be imagined. Its beam swept once across the endless sea, and every ship answered. Thousands of horns, thousands of lights, one impossible harbor, awakening. The little girl clapped happily. "They're finally letting everyone in." Commander Reeves raised his weapon. "Who are you?" The girl frowned. "I don't remember." "Where did you come from?" She looked confused. "I came from my mommy." "Where is your mother?" The girl slowly turned and pointed toward the Mercy Queen. "She's still looking for me." The older Jonah shut his eyes. "Don't turn around." Too late. Every one of us looked. A woman stood near the stern rail. Yellow raincoat. Bare feet. Long black hair covering most of her face. She wasn't moving. She simply watched the child. Then, without lifting her feet, she glided forward. Not walking. Sliding. Like something carried across wet glass. The little girl smiled. "There she is," Leah whispered. "She isn't breathing." Number. She wasn't. Her chest never rose. Her clothes never moved in the wind. She only came closer, slowly, patiently, until she stopped beside the child. The woman reached out, placing one pale hand gently on the little girl's shoulder. Then she looked at us, where her eyes should have been. There was only seawater. Black seawater. Moving. Flowing endlessly inside empty sockets. The older Leah took one step backward. "I remember her." Leah stared. "What?" "I treated her." Silence. "I think," The older medic pressed trembling fingers against her temple. "Nor I will." Commander Reeves looked at the older crew. "What does that mean?" No one answered. Instead, every older version of us suddenly looked toward the bridge. Something inside the ship had changed. The heartbeat stopped. One long silence. Then, another heartbeat, much louder, close enough to shake loose rust from the railings. The Mercy Queen was no longer breathing beneath us. It was breathing around us. A sharp, metallic crack echoed across the deck. The hull split open. Not from damage. From inside, a seam appeared down the center of the ship. Steel folded outward like opening ribs. Darkness waited beneath. Not machinery, not cargo holds. Only black water. Far below. Far deeper than any ship could possibly contain. Perez aimed her flashlight downward. Its beam never reached the bottom. The light simply vanished, swallowed. The older Reeves whispered, "Don't shine lights down there." Perez immediately switched it off. A second later, something moved beneath the darkness. Not upward, sideways, enormous. The water inside the opening rolled without making a sound, as though something beneath it had slowly turned its head. The intercom crackled again. "Passengers for harbor number 7. Pause. Prepare to disembark." Then, for the first time, we heard applause. Not from the Mercy Queen. From every ship surrounding us. Thousands of unseen hands, clapping together. Slow, rhythmic, patient. Waiting for someone to step forward. "Bah," the child looked toward Commander Reeves. "Will you hold my hand?" No one answered. She took one tiny step closer. The older Jonah immediately shouted, "Don't let her touch you." The little girl stopped. For the first time, she looked angry, not like a child, like someone ancient. Pretending to be disappointed, she slowly tilted her head. Her neck continued turning. 45 degrees, 90, 180, until her face looked directly behind her, while the rest of her body still faced us. Then she smiled again. Much wider, much too wide. The woman in the yellow raincoat suddenly spoke. Her voice sounded like waves rolling through caves. "He still remembers the shore." Every older version of us looked at me, not because they were surprised, because they had expected those words. The older Jonah quietly whispered, "That's why it chose you." I stared. "Why me? You haven't forgotten land." "I've been here less than an hour." He almost laughed. "No." His eyes filled with something between pity and exhaustion. "You've been here." He searched for the right words. "For as long as the ship has needed you." Commander Reeves slammed the butt of his pistol against the rail. "Enough!" The crack echoed across the deck. Instantly, every ship on the horizon fell silent. Every horn, every bell, every whisper. Gone. The older Reeves slowly looked at his younger self. "You shouldn't make loud noises." Commander Reeves lowered the pistol. "Why?" The older man didn't answer. Instead, he looked toward the ocean, very slowly. Every person standing aboard every ghost ship raised one finger. To their lips, a silent warning. Thousands of identical movements. Thousands of pale faces. Then, the sea answered. Not with waves, with knocking. 3 knocks, deep below the Mercy Queen, as though someone, or something, beneath the ocean, was knocking on the underside of the world itself. Thud. The entire fleet trembled. Thud. The blue lighthouse blinked once. Thud. The knocking stopped. For a moment, everything was perfectly still. Then the woman in the yellow raincoat whispered only 4 words. He heard us talking, and every older version of us closed their eyes, as if they already knew what was about to come next. No one knew what the knocking meant. The older versions of us did. You could see it in their faces. Not panic, not surprise, recognition, like hearing the same nightmare for the 1,000th time. The older Commander Reeves slowly removed his Coast Guard cap. He held it against his chest, then quietly said, "It's awake." No one asked what it was, because none of us wanted the answer. The sea had already begun changing. The water surrounding the Mercy Queen no longer reflected the sky. It reflected something else. Cities, for only a second at a time. Entire coastlines appeared beneath the surface. Harbors, streetlights, apartment windows, cars moving through rain. Normal life, floating upside down beneath the Atlantic. Leah stared into the water. I can see Portland. Perez stepped beside her. I see Boston. Baird frowned. I don't. What do you see? He swallowed. My house. Commander Reeves immediately grabbed him by the shoulder. Eyes up. Baird couldn't. He continued staring into the sea. My wife is there. No. She's waving. There is nobody there. There is. His voice cracked. Our porch light is on. The older Jonah closed his eyes. It always shows home first. Before anyone could stop him, Baird climbed onto the rail. Commander Reeves lunged. Too late. Baird stepped into empty air. He should have fallen. Instead, he landed on the water, as if it was solid ground. He smiled, turned toward us. You were wrong. He laughed softly. It's shallow. He took another step, then another, walking away from the Mercy Queen. Toward his house, toward the reflection beneath the sea. Leah screamed. Baird! He waved without turning around. My son's waiting, Commander Reeves shouted. Get back here! Baird never reacted. He continued walking. Then, halfway between our ship and the nearest ghost vessel, he simply became blurry, not invisible, out of focus, like an old photograph losing detail. His outline softened. His orange rescue suit faded. His face disappeared. Until there was nothing left, only gentle ripples. The ocean became empty again. The older engineer quietly whispered, I lasted longer than that. No one spoke for almost a full minute. Commander Reeves removed Baird's name from the boarding manifest. 5 people remained. 5 younger, 5 older. The ship seemed pleased. The heartbeat beneath the deck became slower, satisfied. Suddenly, the little girl looked toward the bridge. Oh, her smile widened. He opened the logbook. Commander Reeves frowned. I have it. No, she giggled. The captain. Every eye turned. Captain Elias Rourke stood on the bridge wing. Nobody had seen him arrive. Tall, broad shoulders, dark navy coat, white captain's hat. Perfectly clean, not wet, not damaged, as though he had stepped directly out of 1986. His face looked calm, almost friendly. He rested one hand lightly on the bridge railing, looking down at us. Good morning. Nobody answered. He smiled politely. I've been expecting the inspection. Commander Reeves slowly raised his pistol again. Captain. Commander. You've been declared dead. Captain Rourke nodded. I know. You disappeared. I did. Where? The captain looked toward the horizon. His smile faded. I arrived. Silence. Commander Reeves took one careful step forward. Arrived where? Captain Rourke looked almost disappointed. You still think you're sailing across something? He pointed downward. We crossed it. The older Jonah whispered. This part. I looked at him. Never changes. Captain Rourke slowly descended the bridge stairs. Every step echoed unnaturally loudly. When he reached the deck, the ghost fleet sounded a single horn. Not all together. One ship. One long note. Then another vessel answered. Then another, like voices greeting someone important. Captain Rourke stopped only a few feet away from Commander Reeves. He extended one hand politely. Welcome aboard. Reeves didn't move. Captain Rourke lowered his hand. I understand. He glanced toward me. You've brought another witness. My stomach tightened. What do you mean? Captain Rourke studied my face carefully. As long as someone remembers land, he said quietly, or the crossing cannot finish. Perez suddenly noticed something hanging around the captain's neck. A brass pocket watch. Its glass was cracked. The hands had stopped forever. At 3:14. Exactly like ours. Captain Rourke followed her gaze. Oh, He smiled gently. You'll all receive one eventually. Leah stepped backward. No, you misunderstand. His smile somehow became warmer. It isn't a gift. He looked toward the sea. It's a boarding pass. The little girl clapped happily. He said it! Captain Rourke nodded toward her. You've met Emily. The woman in the yellow raincoat gently placed both hands on the girl's shoulders. Emily looked at us. Mom says the harbor is almost ready. Captain Rourke quietly corrected her. No, he looked directly at me. It's waiting for him. My chest tightened. Why me? Captain Rourke answered immediately. Because you looked back. Confusion crossed every face. He continued. When you climbed aboard, he said. You looked at the shoreline one last time. Everyone did. No. Captain Rourke slowly shook his head. They looked at the ship. He stepped closer. You looked home, the older Jonah whispered. And that's why you're still yourself. The heartbeat beneath the Mercy Queen suddenly stopped. Every ghost ship around us went dark. The blue lighthouse extinguished. Even the fog disappeared. For one impossible second. We could finally see the true horizon. Not ocean, land. An enormous coastline stretching farther than eyesight. Millions of lights, cities, harbors, mountains. Everything beautiful, everything peaceful. Commander Reeves stared. We're close. Captain Rourke sighed. I wish you hadn't seen that. What? The real harbor. Leah smiled through tears. We're almost home. Captain Rourke looked genuinely saddened. No, his voice barely rose above a whisper. Now that's where everyone thinks they're going. The coastline began moving, not closer, toward us. The entire horizon was sailing, like another ship. An impossibly enormous ship, larger than continents, larger than weather, larger than the ocean itself. Cities were only lights upon its deck. Mountains were shadows along its hull. Clouds drifted around its bow. It wasn't land. It had never been land. Commander Reeves slowly lowered his pistol. Oh! Captain Rourke nodded. Now you understand. The enormous horizon changed direction slightly, turning toward the Mercy Queen. Toward us. Toward every waiting ghost ship. The older versions of us all whispered the same sentence together. It's docking. Nobody understood what they were seeing. Because the human mind wasn't meant to. The thing approaching from the horizon looked like land only because our brains refused to imagine anything larger. Cities became lights, mountains became shadows, clouds became smoke, drifting above impossible structures. Our minds simplified it into something familiar. Captain Rourke saw the realization spreading across our faces. It isn't a continent. He spoke almost gently. It only lets you believe that until you're close enough. Commander Reeves whispered. What is it? Captain Rourke looked genuinely uncertain. I've had 40 years to think about that. He smiled without humor. I still don't know. No. The impossible horizon continued moving toward us. Not quickly, not slowly, with absolute certainty. Every ghost ship surrounding the Mercy Queen adjusted its heading. No engines, no propellers, no wind. Thousands of vessels simply aligned themselves, like iron filings pulled toward a magnet. The sea itself no longer carried them. Something else did. Emily, the little girl in the yellow raincoat, laughed happily. They're opening the gates. No gates were visible. Then, the horizon split apart. At first I thought it was an earthquake. A crack appeared across the enormous shoreline, miles wide. Then it opened farther. The coastline was opening inward, like lips, like the entrance to something alive. The blue lighthouse disappeared into the darkness beyond. One by one, the ghost ships began moving, not drifting, sailing. Every vessel headed directly toward the opening. Thousands of silent ships, every passenger standing perfectly still, every captain already facing forward. Not one person attempted to turn away. Commander Reeves backed toward the rail. We're leaving. Captain Rourke didn't stop him. You'll try. Reeves pointed toward the ocean. We jump. The older Reeves quietly closed his eyes. I remember saying that. Leah suddenly grabbed my arm. Jonah, She was staring at the sea. I followed her gaze. The reflection had returned. Only now, it wasn't showing cities. It showed the Mercy Queen, exactly as we stood. But different. In the reflection, Commander Reeves had already jumped. Perez was gone. Emily wasn't there. Captain Rourke stood alone beside me. The reflection wasn't showing now. It was showing something that hadn't happened yet, or had happened before. Commander Reeves climbed over the rail. No more waiting. He looked back at us. "Anyone coming?" Leah nodded immediately. Perez followed. Moss hesitated. I did too. Captain Rourke never moved. Neither did the older versions of us. Commander Reeves looked directly at me. "Jonah." I almost stepped forward. Then, the older Jonah whispered, "Watch the splash." Commander Reeves pushed away from the ship. He fell normally, 5 feet, 10, then struck the ocean, except there was no splash. The water folded, like cloth. Commander Reeves simply passed through it, not beneath it, through it, as if the ocean had only been a surface stretched over something else. For a heartbeat, we could still see him, falling, not into water, into darkness, endless darkness. Then he disappeared. The ocean closed, perfectly smooth again. No waves, no bubbles, no trace he had ever existed. The older Commander Reeves removed his hat. He finally stopped falling. "Ooh!" Leah screamed. Perez collapsed against the rail. Moss whispered, "No." The ship's intercom chimed softly. "Passenger transfer complete. Pause. 5 remaining." Captain Rourke looked almost relieved. "Better." He adjusted the cuffs of his coat. "The crossing is always easier after the first one." "You let him die!" Leah shouted. Captain Rourke looked confused. "I didn't." "You did nothing." There was nothing left to save. His voice carried no cruelty, only certainty. "He boarded." "Ah!" The Mercy Queen suddenly lurched. Not sideways. Forward. The ship had begun moving. No engine noise. No wake. Yet the ghost fleet around us slowly started slipping backward. Not because they moved. Because we did. Emily waved happily toward the opening in the impossible horizon. "We're first," Captain Rourke corrected her. "No," he smiled sadly. "We're last." I looked behind us. The ocean where we'd arrived had disappeared. There was no Atlantic anymore, only endless black water stretching in every direction. No stars, no moon, no sky, only darkness above, darkness below. The Mercy Queen seemed suspended between 2 identical oceans, one above us, one beneath us. For a terrifying second, I couldn't tell which was real. Then the radios came alive again. Not static. Music. A slow swing tune from the 1940s. Warm. Comforting. Completely wrong. Doors throughout the ship opened together. Cabin lights glowed softly. Fresh food appeared on tables. Coffee steamed. Beds looked warm. Someone was trying very hard to make the Mercy Queen feel like home. Perez whispered, "It's inviting us." The older Perez smiled weakly. "It always does." Moss suddenly frowned. "Where's Leah?" Everyone turned. She wasn't beside us anymore. Only 4 younger crew remained. The older Leah looked toward the stern. Without speaking, we followed her gaze. Leah stood alone near the ship's rail, facing the sea. Someone stood with her. A woman, middle-aged, dark hair, hospital gown, an oxygen tube still hanging around her neck. The woman smiled through tears. "Dad?" Leah whispered. The older Leah closed her eyes. "That's how they got me." The younger Leah slowly walked toward the woman. Not hypnotized, not controlled, simply overwhelmed. "Dad!" The woman opened her arms. "I've missed you." Leah began crying. She had told us months earlier that her father died during the pandemic. She had never been able to say goodbye. Now, he was standing only a few feet away, waiting. The older Leah suddenly shouted louder than anyone had yet aboard the Mercy Queen. "He never called you princess." The younger Leah stopped. Everything froze. The woman blinked once, then smiled. What?" The older Leah stepped closer. "My father hated that nickname. The woman's smile slowly disappeared. Very slowly. Her face began changing. Skin sagged, eyes darkened. The oxygen tube became black seaweed. Her hospital gown dissolved into dripping algae. She opened her mouth, too wide, far too wide, and from inside came the same whisper we'd heard since boarding. "Come home." Leah stumbled backward. The thing wearing her father's face remained smiling. It didn't chase her. It simply watched, as if pleased, that she'd almost believed. The older Leah looked at her younger self. "You'll miss him forever." A long pause. "But don't let grief teach you new voices." Silence settled across the deck again. Ahead, the opening in the impossible horizon had grown so large that we could no longer see its edges. It wasn't a harbor. It wasn't a gate. It was an absence, a place where reality simply stopped, and the Mercy Queen continued sailing toward it, without slowing. The absence swallowed the horizon. No light escaped from it. No sound. No wind. It wasn't darkness. Darkness is something you can see through. This was the complete absence of everything that allows the human mind to understand distance. Looking into it hurt. Not my eyes. My memory. For brief moments I forgot my own name. Forgot why I had boarded. Forgot what year it was. Each time I blinked, the memories returned. Shorter. Thinner. As though something ahead was gently pulling them away. The older Jonah noticed immediately. "It's starting." "What?" "The crossing." He reached into his jacket and unfolded a weathered notebook. Every page was filled with names, dates, ships, coordinates, thousands of entries. Some crossed out, some circled. Most simply ended with one word: remembered. Near the end, one page remained blank except for 6 names. Commander Daniel Reeves, Leah Voss, Daniel Moss, Anna Perez, Jonah Hale. One empty line beneath them. No 6th name. I frowned. There were 6 of us. The older Jonah nodded. There were. "Who's missing?" He slowly looked toward the bridge. "That's what you're about to forget." The Mercy Queen shuddered again. Captain Rourke calmly checked his pocket watch. Still 3:14. It had never moved. It never would. He smiled almost sadly. "We're late." Emily tugged gently at his sleeve. "Will they still let us in?" Captain Rourke looked toward the impossible opening. "They always do." Suddenly, every ship around us rang its bell. Not once, 3 times. The sound echoed forever. From somewhere inside the opening, another bell answered, much deeper, so deep I felt it inside my bones. The older crew all lowered their heads, like churchgoers hearing a prayer they no longer believed in. Moss suddenly grabbed my shoulder. "Jonah." His voice shook. "I can't remember my wife." I looked at him. "What?" "I know I have one." His breathing became frantic. "I know her face." He pressed both hands against his temples. "But I can't." He began crying. "I can't remember her name." Leah looked horrified. "Moss." He looked desperately from one of us to another. "Tell me." Nobody could. Not because we refused, because none of us remembered either. The older Moss quietly spoke. "It takes names first." The younger Moss stared at him. "What?" "Names." Then, birthdays. Then, voices. Finally, faces. He looked away toward the sea. "After that," he whispered, "you stop missing home." Perez reached into her pocket, pulled out her phone. No signal, no battery. Yet, the screen switched on. A photograph filled it. Her mother, smiling, standing outside the small restaurant Perez always talked about. The picture wasn't old. It was moving, like a live video. Her mother looked directly into the camera. "Anna?" Perez gasped. "Mama? I've been trying to call you." Tears filled Perez's eyes. "I'm coming home." "No." Her mother smiled warmly. "You already did." The screen went black. When it lit again, the contact name had changed. Not Mom. It now read, "Passenger." Captain Rourke quietly observed us. "You think memory belongs to you?" He looked toward the impossible harbor. "It doesn't. It belongs to wherever you leave it. The opening ahead had become enormous now, close enough that we could finally see. It wasn't empty. Something moved inside. Countless lights. Not stars. Windows. Thousands upon thousands of windows. Like an endless city hidden inside the darkness. Each one glowing softly, warmly, invitingly. The ghost fleet sailed toward them without hesitation. Every vessel disappeared into the opening, one after another. No splash, no collision, simply gone. The older Reeves spoke without looking at anyone. I tried counting them. How many? I stopped after 12,000. Silence. I think there are more. 2. A whistle echoed across the water. Not a ship's whistle, a train whistle. Far away, somewhere inside the darkness. Emily smiled brightly. The station's open. Captain Rourke nodded. Different crossings. He looked toward me. Same destination. For the first time since boarding, Captain Rourke seemed tired. Not physically, emotionally. He walked slowly toward the bow, looking out across the impossible harbor. I used to think rescue ships would find us. His voice was almost lost beneath the distant bells. No, then I thought my wife would. A faint smile. Then I thought God would. He shook his head. Eventually, he whispered. Oh, I stopped waiting. I found myself asking the question that had haunted me since we boarded. Why don't you leave? Captain Rourke looked back. His answer came without hesitation. Someone has to welcome the next ship. The words settled over the deck like cold rain. The older Jonah slowly closed his notebook. You understand now? I did. Captain Rourke wasn't the master of the Mercy Queen. He was its prisoner, its keeper, the man left standing at the door to greet whoever boarded next, exactly as someone had greeted him decades earlier. The older Jonah looked directly into my eyes. If we fail today, he said quietly, oh, you become him. Captain Rourke didn't deny it. He only looked out toward the endless harbor, as if remembering the day someone had once said the same thing. To him, Captain Rourke's words echoed through my head long after he stopped speaking. If we fail today, you become him. I looked at the older version of myself. He didn't deny it. He simply looked away. That told me everything. The Mercy Queen crossed an invisible line. Every compass on board spun wildly. North, south, east, west. Again, again, again. Then, every needle stopped, all pointing directly downward. Not toward the bow, not toward the harbor. Down, into the ship, into whatever existed beneath the steel. Leah whispered. Compasses don't do that. The older Leah answered quietly. Nothing does. Then came the sound. Not outside, inside our heads. At first I thought it was someone humming. A low melody, gentle, almost comforting. Emily began humming with it. Captain Rourke closed his eyes. The older crew lowered their heads. Only we, the younger boarding team, looked around in confusion. Perez pressed both hands over her ears. Do you hear that? Moss nodded. It sounds... He frowned. Familiar. The melody slowly changed. Not randomly. It became the lullaby my mother used to sing when I was 6. I hadn't heard it in over 20 years. Leah suddenly whispered, That's impossible. It's my father's favorite song. Perez started crying again. No, it's my grandmother's piano. Each of us heard something different. Something only we should remember. The older Jonah stepped closer. Don't follow it. I don't want to. You will. The melody drifted across the deck like warm summer air. The impossible harbor ahead glowed brighter, not because its lights had changed, because it now looked welcoming, comfortable, safe. For the first time since boarding, I wanted to go there, not because I trusted it, because it felt right. That frightened me more than anything else. Captain Rourke suddenly spoke. Do you know why no one ever escaped? Nobody answered. He looked toward the harbor. They stopped wanting to. Silence. The sea never traps anyone. He smiled sadly. It only waits until they ask to stay. The older Jonah looked at me sharply. Listen carefully. He reached into his notebook and tore out a single page. He handed it to me. It contained only one sentence, written dozens of times, exactly the same. If you stop being afraid, run. I frowned. What? He looked exhausted. Fear is the only honest thing left here. Ha! Without warning, the Mercy Queen slowed. Every ghost ship surrounding us also slowed. Ahead, the impossible harbor had become visible in terrifying detail. It wasn't built. It had grown. Tower-like structures rose from black water. Their walls weren't stone. They looked almost organic. Smooth, curved, breathing. Thousands of windows opened and closed slowly, like blinking eyes. Massive bridges stretched across empty water. No supports, no foundations, simply hanging there, waiting. Every arriving ghost ship headed toward a different pier. Each pier already occupied, not by workers, by people. Millions of them, standing silently, watching the arriving vessels. No movement, no conversation, only waiting. The older Reeves whispered, "They've been waiting longer than history." Emily suddenly waved happily toward the nearest pier. "There!" A woman waved back. She looked exactly like Emily, only older. The little girl smiled. "My mommy finally found me." The older Jonah immediately grabbed my arm. "Don't look." Too late. The older woman smiled directly at me. Then, her face cracked. Not like skin, like porcelain. Hundreds of thin fractures spread across her smile. Black seawater leaked through every crack. Still smiling, she raised one finger and beckoned. "Come." Every pier held people doing exactly the same thing. Millions of silent figures, all smiling, all inviting, all waiting. Leah whispered, "They're expecting us." Captain Rourke quietly corrected her. "No." He looked toward the endless city. "They're expecting replacements." Then, for the first time, we saw the keepers. At the end of every pier stood one person. A captain, a lighthouse keeper, a train conductor, a ferryman, a nurse, a soldier. Hundreds, thousands, everyone standing alone, waiting to greet the next arrivals. Some wore uniforms centuries old. Others wore modern clothes. Every keeper watched only their own ship. None looked away. Captain Rourke quietly said, "I've been standing there before." The older Jonah nodded. "So have I." My blood turned cold. A bell rang somewhere deep inside the impossible harbor. Once, every arriving vessel stopped. Perfectly together, the harbor itself seemed to inhale. Captain Rourke looked at me. "It's almost your turn." "My turn for what?" He didn't answer. Instead, he removed the brass pocket watch from around his neck. Still frozen at 3:14, he held it out toward me. "I've carried this long enough." I refused to take it. Captain Rourke smiled gently. "I refuse too." He carefully closed my fingers around the cold brass. The instant I touched it, the entire harbor vanished, not disappeared, changed. The smiling crowds were gone. The piers were empty. The beautiful lights became countless tiny lanterns floating across black water. Every ghost ship had rotted. Every passenger had become a pale silhouette. The impossible city wasn't welcoming anymore. It was abandoned, ancient, broken, as if everything beautiful I'd seen before had only been another illusion. Captain Rourke looked relieved. "You finally saw it." I stared across the endless ruins. "What happened here?" Captain Rourke whispered the words that every keeper eventually learned. "I don't think—" He paused. "When anyone ever arrived." Silence. Then, far beyond the dead harbor, something answered. A single, enormous eye opened in the darkness. And for the first time, it looked directly at me. Not through me, not beyond me, at me. The older Jonah's face lost what little color remained. He took one slow step backward, then whispered the only words that had ever truly frightened him. "It knows your name now." The eye never blinked. It didn't need to. Its gaze reached across an ocean that no longer belonged to any world I understood. I couldn't look away, not because it forced me, because every instinct I had told me, If I looked away first, it would move. The older Jonah grabbed both of my shoulders so hard I felt the seams of my rescue jacket tear. "Jonah!" His voice sounded distant, like someone shouting through heavy rain. "Listen to me." The eye remained fixed on me. Behind it, the darkness rippled. Shapes drifted beneath its surface. Not fish, not ships. Cities, entire cities, sinking upward through black water. The older Jonah slapped me across the face. Pain exploded through my jaw. The connection broke. The eye was still there, but somehow farther away. I gasped, stumbling backward. He didn't apologize. "You were almost gone." "What?" I struggled to breathe. "What was that?" His answer came immediately. "It remembered you." Captain Rourke lowered his head. I hoped it wouldn't. "You knew?" Captain Rourke looked older than he had only moments before. "I've seen it happen." "To who?" He looked toward the abandoned harbor. "Every keeper." The brass pocket watch in my hand suddenly began ticking. "For the first time!" Tick, tick, tick. Everyone heard it. Captain Rourke looked at the watch, then at me. His face emptied of all expression. "It chose," the older Jonah quietly whispered. "No." Captain Rourke nodded once. "It's never wrong." The intercom came alive. No static, no distortion, only a calm woman's voice. Replacement confirmed. Silence. Transfer authority accepted. Another pause. Previous keeper released. Captain Rourke slowly closed his eyes. He didn't smile. He didn't cry. He simply exhaled, as though carrying a weight too heavy for 40 years. No. The older Jonah stepped between me and Captain Rourke. "Not this time." Captain Rourke looked almost amused. "You said that before." "I know. And before that." "I know. And before that." The older Jonah's shoulders fell. "I know." His voice cracked. "I remember every time." I stared at him. "What do you mean every time?" The older Jonah looked exhausted. "The Mercy Queen doesn't repeat days." He swallowed. "It repeats people." Silence settled across the deck. Then he continued. "You think we're different versions?" He slowly shook his head. "We're not." He looked me directly in the eyes. "We're every attempt." My stomach turned. "What?" "The first Jonah boarded in 1988. He pointed toward himself. "The next, decades later. Then toward me." "You!" He slowly swept his hand across the older crew. "We're not from different futures," he whispered. "We're from different failures." No one spoke, because somehow it explained everything. Why the older crew remembered different things. Why they carried different scars. Why they never completely agreed on what happened. Each of them had survived a different crossing. Each had failed. Each had been returned. To wait for another version. Captain Rourke quietly nodded. "It keeps trying." "Trying what?" "To replace me." He looked down at the ticking watch. "It has excellent patience." Tick, tick, tick. The watch grew louder. Every second echoed across the impossible harbor. The giant eye remained fixed on me. Not hostile, interested, like a scientist observing an insect. Then it blinked. The harbor disappeared. Every ghost ship vanished. The ocean returned. For one impossible heartbeat, I saw the real Atlantic again. Blue water, gray sky, cold wind. The Coast Guard cutter, Halcyon, floating only 100 yards away. Engines running, crew shouting, Commander Reeves standing aboard. "Aleph. Impossible," Leah gasped. "We're back," Perez began laughing through tears. "We made it!" Moss fell to his knees. Captain Rourke never moved. The older Jonah looked terrified. "No," he whispered. "Don't believe it." The Halcyon approached quickly. Crew members waved. Someone threw a rescue line. Commander Reeves shouted across the water. "Jump!" Leah looked ready to leap. The older Leah grabbed her arm. "Wait, but—" "Listen." Everyone fell silent. The Halcyon was close enough now that we should have heard engines, waves, voices. Instead, there was nothing. Complete silence. The rescue boat moved across the sea, without making a sound. Perez's smile disappeared. The older Reeves quietly said, "It learned." The Halcyon came alongside. The crew looked exactly right. Orange rescue suits, life jackets, helmets, every detail perfect. Commander Reeves leaned over the rail. "Come on!" I looked carefully. His mouth moved. His body moved. His hands waved. But his eyes never blinked. Neither did anyone else's. 6 perfect Coast Guard rescuers. All smiling. All silent. All waiting. Captain Rourke sighed. "It gets better every crossing." The older Jonah quietly added, "It only needs one mistake." A rescue line landed at my feet. Perfect throw. I bent to pick it up. The rope felt warm. Not wet. Warm. Like human skin left too long in the sun. I dropped it immediately. The rope moved. Just once. Like fingers tightening. Then became ordinary rope again. The Halcyon's crew continued smiling, still without making a sound. Emily suddenly laughed. "They're almost real." The woman in the yellow raincoat gently stroked her daughter's hair. One day, Captain Rourke looked toward the endless sea. "They're learning." Then, for the very first time, the impossible eye looked away from me. It turned, slowly, toward the Halcyon, toward the false rescue crew, toward something beyond even them. Captain Rourke frowned. "I've never seen that." The older Jonah slowly backed away. Neither had he. Something had changed, something that had never happened in any previous crossing. And somewhere, far beyond the Mercy Queen, another ship answered the horn. Not one from the Ghost Fleet. A ship that wasn't supposed to be here at all. Its signal echoed once through the fog. Then came a voice over every radio aboard the Mercy Queen. "Clear, strong, human. This is the passenger liner St. Augustine." A long pause. "We've received your distress call." Another pause. "There are over 2,000 souls aboard." Silence. Then the final sentence. "We're coming to help." Captain Rourke's face went completely white. For the first time in 40 years, the keeper looked afraid. For nearly 10 seconds, nobody spoke. Not because we didn't understand what we'd heard, because we understood it perfectly. 2,000 people, a passenger liner, heading directly toward us, toward the Mercy Queen. Captain Rourke's hands began shaking. Not violently, just enough for us to notice. Emily looked confused. "What's wrong?" He didn't answer. The woman in the yellow raincoat slowly turned toward the distant fog. For the first time, her smile disappeared. The radio crackled again. "This is Captain William Mercer of the St. Augustine." His voice was calm. "Professional. We have visual contact with an unidentified cargo vessel." A pause. "If anyone aboard can hear us." Another pause. "Hold on." Perez instinctively reached for her radio. Commander Reeves had trained us to answer distress calls without hesitation. She thumbed the transmit button. "This is United States Coast Guard." The older Perez hit the radio from her hand. It clattered across the deck. "What are you doing?" "You cannot answer." "There are people out there." "I know. They're coming to rescue us." The older Perez looked at the ocean with empty eyes. They're the ones who need rescuing." Captain Rourke slowly removed his hat. 40 years of exhaustion suddenly showed on his face. "It found another ship." The older Jonah stared. "I didn't think it could." "It hasn't," Captain Rourke swallowed. "For a very long time." The Ghost Fleet reacted immediately. Thousands of ships began changing course. Not toward the harbor anymore. Toward the approaching signal. Every captain turned their wheels. Every horn sounded. Every vessel silently converged, like predators, smelling blood. The giant eye disappeared beneath the sea. The impossible harbor slowly faded. The blue lighthouse went dark. Everything was retreating. Captain Rourke looked more frightened with every passing second. "No," he whispered. "It's hunting." "Bah!" The Mercy Queen accelerated, still without engines, still without producing a wake. The bow cut silently through black water, straight toward the incoming distress signal. Moss grabbed Captain Rourke by the front of his coat. "What happens if they reach us?" The old captain didn't resist. His answer came as a whisper. "It learns." "What?" "Humanity. Silence. It only ever learns from whoever boards." He looked toward the fog. 2,000 people. His voice cracked. "Is more than it's ever had." The radios erupted with activity. "Mercy Queen!" Captain Mercer again. "We're preparing rescue boats." Another voice. "Female." "Captain, radar's acting strange." Another. "Sir, there are other vessels." Pause. "So many vessels." Static swallowed the transmission. Then, screaming. Not loud, far away, as though microphones had been dropped onto metal decks. Emily covered her ears. "They're looking," Captain Rourke whispered. "They saw the harbor." The older Reeves turned toward us. "We have one chance." Everyone looked at him. He pointed toward the bridge. "The wheel." Captain Rourke nodded slowly. "It still answers." "I know. You've tried. Every crossing." "And?" Captain Rourke smiled bitterly. "I was alone." The older Jonah finally understood. "We're not here to escape." Captain Rourke met his eyes. "No, we're here." The older Jonah looked toward the approaching fog. "To stop it reaching them." Captain Rourke closed his eyes. For the first time, the deck trembled. Not from movement, from impact. Something had struck the hull. Once, then again. Huge shadows rolled beneath the water. Not one, dozens. Impossible shapes circling the Mercy Queen. Keeping pace. The sea itself had become crowded. Captain Mercer's voice returned. Closer now. "We can see your ship." Perez instinctively looked toward the fog. A warm white light pierced through it. Not supernatural. Not impossible. A real searchlight. Then another. Then another. The outline of a massive modern cruise liner slowly emerged. Bright. Alive. Music drifting faintly across the water. Thousands of cabin windows glowing warmly. The St. Augustine. Beautiful. Ordinary. Real. Leah whispered through tears. "It's actually here." For one brief moment, hope returned. Then the passengers appeared. Hundreds of them lined the upper decks, still wearing evening clothes, holding phones, pointing toward us. They had no idea what they were approaching. Children waved. Someone laughed. A man raised a glass of champagne. They thought they were watching a rescue. Captain Rourke quietly said, "They're already too close." The St. Augustine sounded 3 short blasts. Friendly. Professional. Its bridge spotlight settled on the Mercy Queen. Captain Mercer came over the loudspeaker. "Mercy Queen, we're launching rescue craft immediately." The older Jonah whispered. "No." Captain Rourke closed his eyes. "I remember that voice." "You've seen this before?" "No." He looked toward the cruise ship. "But I've heard it." The first rescue boat splashed into the sea. Then the second. Then a third. Bright orange inflatable craft, each carrying trained crew, heading directly toward us. Commander Reeves looked at Captain Rourke. "Can they still turn back?" Captain Rourke watched the boats crossing the water. His answer came so quietly. I almost missed it. They already crossed the line. But at that exact moment, every passenger aboard the St. Augustine stopped moving. Every conversation ended. Every raised phone froze. 2,000 people turned together, not toward the Mercy Queen, toward the ocean beneath them, as if something below the ship had called their names. Captain Mercer shouted over the loudspeaker. "Well, what the hell are they doing?" No one answered him, because beneath the St. Augustine, the Atlantic Ocean began to open. The ocean did not split violently. There was no explosion, no towering wave. Instead, the Atlantic simply opened, like a pair of curtains being drawn apart. The black water beneath the St. Augustine folded away in complete silence. The ship lurched as its hull suddenly found nothing beneath it. Passengers screamed. For the first time, we could hear them. Real screams. Human screams. Captain Mercer shouted orders through the loudspeaker. All engines full astern. Sound collision alarm. Recover the rescue boats. The cruise ship's engines roared. Massive propellers churned white water. The St. Augustine tried to reverse. It didn't move. Not an inch. It was no longer floating. It was being held. Turn! The rescue boat stopped rowing. Not because they wanted to. Every oar froze halfway through the water. Crew members struggled desperately. Nothing happened. It looked as though the ocean itself had become solid around them. One of the coxswains shouted into his radio. "We're stuck!" Another. "I can't move." Then, all three rescue boats slowly began drifting. Not toward the Mercy Queen. Downward. There was no slope. No current. Yet every boat gently slid into the opening beneath the sea. Commander Reeves stared. "That's impossible," Captain Rourke answered quietly. "The sea isn't opening." "What? It's closing!" The sentence made no sense, until I looked again. The Atlantic wasn't parting. The black edges were moving inward. Everything inside the opening. The St. Augustine, the rescue boats, the water itself, was being folded somewhere else, like a page being turned. Captain Mercer came over the loudspeaker again. His voice remained remarkably calm. "All passengers proceed to emergency stations." Behind him, someone screamed. Then another. Then dozens. Captain Mercer shouted. "What are they looking at?" "Static." Then one final transmission. "My God." Silence. Perez looked through the binoculars hanging around her neck. The color drained from her face. She lowered them without speaking. "What?" She handed them to me. I looked. At first, everything appeared normal. Panicked passengers, crew running, life jackets, emergency lights. Then, I noticed every shadow aboard the cruise ship was facing the wrong direction. The sun sat low behind the clouds. The shadows should have fallen toward the bow. Instead, every shadow stretched toward the opening beneath the sea, toward something far below, not cast by light, pulled. Then the passengers began pointing, not at the Mercy Queen, not at the rescue boats, straight down. Thousands of hands, thousands of terrified faces, all staring over the rail, into the water beneath them. One by one, they began stepping backward, not running, retreating, as if whatever they saw below was climbing. Emily smiled. "They can see the stairs now," Captain Rourke whispered. "There shouldn't be stairs." The little girl looked genuinely confused. "There always are." The Mercy Queen's horn sounded. Long, deep, ancient. Every ghost ship answered immediately. The entire fleet began moving. Not toward the harbor anymore. Toward the cruise liner. Toward the living. Toward 2,000 unsuspecting souls. The older Jonah grabbed my arm. "We're out of time. What do we do?" He looked toward the bridge. "The wheel." Captain Rourke nodded once. "The wheel still remembers direction." Commander Reeves frowned. "Direction to where?" Captain Rourke finally smiled. "Anywhere except them." We ran. Every younger member of the boarding team. Every older survivor. "Captain Rourke." All sprinted toward the bridge. "Behind us." The ghost fleet accelerated. Hundreds. Thousands. Every abandoned ship converging on the St. Augustine. Like wolves surrounding a wounded animal. The bridge door slammed open. Captain Rourke rushed to the wheel. For the first time, he placed both hands firmly upon it. His face twisted with effort. Every muscle in his body tightened. The wheel didn't move, not even slightly. Commander Reeves joined him, then Moss, then me. Steel groaned beneath our hands. The wheel resisted, like we were trying to rotate a mountain. Captain Rourke shouted through gritted teeth. "It doesn't steer the ship." "What then?" "It steers," he strained harder, "where the crossing opens." The older Jonah suddenly froze. His eyes widened. "No." He looked out the bridge windows. "It's already here." We all turned. The opening beneath the St. Augustine had grown. Not wider. Higher. A staircase. was rising from the darkness. Black stone steps, wet, ancient, far too large for any human architecture. They climbed upward through empty air, stopping only a few feet beneath the cruise liner. Passengers watched in horrified silence. Someone stepped onto the top stair, not because they wanted to, because something below had called them. A little boy, maybe 7 years old, still clutching a stuffed dinosaur. He looked down the staircase, smiled, then quietly said, "Dad," without another word. He began walking. Down. His mother lunged after him. She never reached him. The child simply walked farther, each step making him slightly older. By the 5th step, he looked 12. By the 10th, he was a grown man. By the 20th, an old man. Still walking downward, still smiling. Then, he disappeared into the darkness below. His mother collapsed, screaming. Captain Rourke pulled harder on the wheel. Blood ran down both hands. "Help me!" All of us pushed with everything we had. For one agonizing second, nothing happened. Then, the wheel moved. Barely. 1 inch. The Mercy Queen groaned. Every ghost ship around us shuddered. The opening beneath the St. Augustine flickered. The staircase trembled. Captain Rourke shouted, "Again!" We pushed. Harder. Another inch. The impossible harbor itself seemed to shift, like an entire universe, slowly changing course. And somewhere, far beneath every ship, something impossibly ancient roared, not in anger, in recognition. Because for the first time, in longer than anyone could remember, someone aboard the Mercy Queen had tried to turn away. The roar did not come from beneath the sea. It came from everywhere. The air shook. The ocean trembled. The impossible harbor rippled like a reflection struck by a stone. Every ghost ship lurched violently. Some drifted sideways. Others stopped completely. For the first time, the fleet had lost its perfect order. Captain Rourke looked almost shocked. It moved. His hands continued pulling against the wheel. It actually moved. The older Jonah didn't celebrate. Instead, his face became even paler. "You made it notice." Captain Rourke slowly looked at him. "I know." The gigantic eye beneath the darkness opened fully, not wider. Completely. Only now did I understand what we'd been calling an eye. It wasn't one eye. It was a doorway, a living doorway. Its iris wasn't flesh. It was made of oceans. Its pupil wasn't black. It contained stars. Entire constellations drifted slowly inside it. Not our stars. Different ones. Older ones. The thing looking at us wasn't beneath the Atlantic. The Atlantic merely happened to exist. Above it. Every radio exploded into static. Then, a voice. Not human. Not male. Not female. Every person heard it differently. Later, none of us would remember the exact words. Only the meaning. "You are facing the wrong direction." The sentence didn't arrive through sound. It arrived through memory, as though we'd always known it. "Turn," Captain Rourke screamed. "Turn the wheel!" We pushed harder. The steel resisted. Every muscle in my body burned. The older crew joined us. 10 people, 1 wheel. The bridge groaned around us. Glass cracked. Bolts snapped. The Mercy Queen shuddered violently. Outside, the ghost fleet drifted another few degrees away from the St. Augustine. Only a few, but enough. Enough that several ghost ships collided. The impact produced no sound. Instead, they simply passed through one another, like reflections, like memories. "Chio!" Captain Mercer came over the radio. His voice was panicked now. "Bridge! We've lost steering!" Another officer shouted somewhere behind him. "Passengers are leaving the ship!" Captain Mercer yelled. "Stop them!" We looked through the bridge windows. Hundreds of passengers walked calmly toward the black staircase. Not running, not screaming, simply walking, as though boarding another cruise. Crew members grabbed them, pulled them back. Some resisted. Others smiled peacefully and stepped into the darkness anyway. Emily clapped happily. "They hear the harbor. Captain Rourke looked at her with genuine sadness. "No," he whispered. "They hear home." The wheel turned another inch. This time, the response was immediate. The staircase beneath the St. Augustine cracked. One entire section collapsed into the darkness below. Dozens of passengers who had been descending suddenly stumbled. Some looked around, confused, like people waking from hypnosis. Captain Mercer shouted triumphantly. "They're stopping!" The older Jonah stared. "It remembers another path." The eye moved. Not quickly, not violently. Its gaze shifted from me to Captain Rourke. The old captain immediately froze. His hands remained on the wheel. His body stopped moving. Captain Rourke slowly smiled. Not his own smile. "Something else," he whispered. "I remember now," the older Reeves shouted. "Don't listen!" Captain Rourke continued smiling. So peaceful. His grip on the wheel loosened. "No!" I grabbed his shoulders. He looked directly into my eyes. Except they weren't his anymore. Black water slowly filled them. "I've been steering the wrong way." The wheel began turning back. By itself, everything we'd gained began disappearing. The ghost fleet corrected course. The staircase repaired itself. Passengers aboard the St. Augustine resumed walking. Captain Mercer screamed over the radio. "We're losing them again!" The older Jonah suddenly made a decision. He pulled a flare gun from his rescue vest, pointed it directly at the bridge ceiling, fired. The explosion filled the bridge with blinding red light. Glass shattered. Smoke poured across the room. Captain Rourke cried out, and whatever held him let go. His eyes returned to normal. He collapsed to his knees, breathing hard. "What?" He looked horrified. I almost do." The older Jonah helped him stand. "It speaks louder every crossing." The flare continued burning above us. Its red glow spread across the bridge windows. Then something impossible happened. The giant eye closed. Not completely, just enough to shield itself. Captain Rourke stared upward. "It doesn't like fire," the older Leah whispered. "Not fire." She looked at the burning flare. "Light." Silence filled the bridge. Every older survivor slowly looked toward the burning flare. The same realization spread across every face. Captain Rourke's breathing became shallow. He whispered almost to himself. "The lighthouse." I looked at him. "What?" He laughed once, softly, disbelieving. It was never guiding ships. The word struck all of us at once. "The lighthouse," he continued. "It was trying to keep this thing asleep." Outside, the ghost fleet hesitated. The eye remained half-closed. The impossible harbor flickered. For the first time, the Mercy Queen wasn't following it. It was drifting free. Captain Rourke looked at the burning flare one last time, then at me. His expression had completely changed. 40 years of guilt, 40 years of waiting, had finally become certainty. "I know how to stop it." The older Jonah's face went white. "You said that." Captain Rourke nodded. "I know. You always say that." "I know. You always die." Captain Rourke smiled, then quietly answered. "Maybe." He looked through the shattered bridge windows, toward the impossible harbor. And for the first time, the keeper began making a plan. Captain Rourke stared through the shattered bridge windows for a long time. No one interrupted him. Outside, the flare continued burning crimson against the impossible sky. Every ghost ship remained frozen. The eye beneath the sea stayed half-closed. Whatever held this place together was hesitating. 40 years, and for the first time, the Mercy Queen was no longer obeying. Captain Rourke whispered. I should have understood. The older Jonah didn't answer. He simply watched the old captain carefully, as though he had heard those exact words before. Funnel. Captain Rourke slowly turned toward all of us. I've spent decades believing this ship was the prison. He looked around the bridge. The steel, the corridors, the harbor. He shook his head. I was wrong. Commander Reeves frowned. What do you mean? Captain Rourke gently placed one hand on the wheel. This ship was the lock. Silence. The older Reeves quietly closed his eyes. He already knew. Captain Rourke continued. It isn't trying to take people. It's trying. He searched for the right words to keep something from leaving. Every older survivor slowly looked toward the sea. No one argued. Because suddenly, everything made sense. The lighthouse. The Mercy Queen. The train whistles. The ferrymen. The keepers. Every strange story sailors had ever whispered. They weren't gateways. They were seals, each one guarding the same thing. Emily stopped smiling. She looked frightened for the first time. The woman in the yellow raincoat gently pulled the little girl behind her. Captain Rourke noticed. They know, the older Leah whispered. They're afraid. Captain Rourke nodded. Good. The gigantic eye slowly began opening again. Very slowly. It had recovered from the flare. The harbor brightened. The staircase beneath the St. Augustine repaired itself. Passengers resumed walking toward the darkness. The moment was ending. Captain Rourke looked at the burning flare. We need more light. Commander Reeves frowned. That's it. No. The old captain looked toward the bridge ceiling. We need... He smiled weakly. The kind of light that tells the sea where not to go. Leah suddenly understood. The lighthouse. Captain Rourke nodded. The lighthouse wasn't a warning to ships. It was a warning. He looked directly at me. Whatever waits below. The older Jonah looked exhausted. It'll never let us reach land. Captain Rourke answered immediately. We don't have to. Silence. We only need the light. Commander Reeves looked around the bridge. This ship doesn't have a lighthouse. Captain Rourke smiled. No. He reached beneath the navigation console, pressed both hands against a rusted metal plate. It refused to move. The older Reeves stepped forward. Without a word, he helped. Then the older Jonah. Then the rest of us. Together, we tore the plate free. Behind it, hidden inside the bridge for nearly 40 years, sat a brass lever. Ancient, covered in salt, never mentioned on any blueprint. The words engraved beneath it had almost disappeared. Almost. Captain Rourke wiped away decades of corrosion. The letters became visible. Lantern release. Nobody spoke. Captain Rourke stared at the lever, as though seeing it for the first time. I never found this. The older Jonah quietly replied. You never looked. Captain Rourke wrapped both hands around the brass handle. It didn't move. Commander Reeves joined him. Then me. Then everyone else. 10 pairs of hands. One forgotten lever. Captain Rourke counted. 3, 2, 1. We pulled. Nothing. Then, a loud metallic explosion echoed through the Mercy Queen. Somewhere far below, massive gears began turning. Not ship engines. Older. Heavier. Ancient machinery that had slept longer than any of us had been alive. The entire hull shook. Every ghost ship around us suddenly sounded its horn. Not together. In panic. Emily screamed. No! The woman in the yellow raincoat grabbed her daughter and backed toward the bridge door. For the first time, they wanted to leave. Captain Rourke smiled. They remember. The brass lever finally gave way. It slammed fully downward. The noise that followed was unlike anything I'd ever heard. Not mechanical. Not natural. The Mercy Queen itself rang. Every beam, every bolt, every rivet inside the ship vibrated together. A single perfect note echoed across the impossible sea. The gigantic eye immediately snapped shut. Not halfway. Completely. The harbor disappeared. The staircase beneath the St. Augustine shattered. The ghost fleet scattered in every direction, like frightened birds. Captain Mercer shouted over the radio. The water! We looked. The opening beneath the cruise ship was closing. Fast. Rescue boats floated normally again. Passengers collapsed where they stood. Some screamed. Some cried. Some looked around as if waking from deep sleep. The St. Augustine's engines roared. This time, the ship actually moved. Cheers erupted over their loudspeakers. Crew members embraced. Children cried into their parents' arms. Captain Mercer laughed through tears. "We're free!" For one brief, beautiful moment, it looked like we'd won. Then, the Mercy Queen stopped vibrating. The ancient machinery fell silent. Captain Rourke's smile slowly faded. No, the brass lever began moving upward, by itself, slowly, inch by inch. Something below the sea was pulling it back. The older Jonah whispered. It found the lock. Captain Rourke looked down at the lever, then quietly looked at me. I know what has to stay. I felt my stomach turn. No, he smiled. It was always me. The old captain gently removed my hands from the lever. Then Commander Reeves. Then everyone else's. Only his remained. He looked toward the impossible sea. I failed them once. He looked back toward the St. Augustine, already disappearing safely into the fog. I won't fail them twice. The lever climbed another inch. Captain Rourke wrapped both arms around it, using his own weight to hold it down. The steel beneath his feet began cracking. The bridge itself was opening. The ship was trying to reclaim its keeper. The older Jonah shouted, "Captain!" Rourke smiled one last time. "Take them home." Then the bridge floor split apart beneath him. Captain Elias Rourke and the ancient brass lever fell together into the darkness beneath the Mercy Queen. The instant he disappeared, the ship released a deafening cry. Not the sound of steel, not a horn, a voice, a single human voice, screaming for 40 years, finally ending. The lever locked. The note returned. Brighter this time, stronger, like a lighthouse, switching on. And, for the first time, the darkness beneath the sea began retreating. Not defeated, not destroyed, only driven back, far enough for dawn to finally touch the ocean once again. Dawn spread slowly across the Atlantic. For the first time since we had boarded the Mercy Queen, the sky looked like a sky again. Gray clouds, cold wind, real waves. The impossible harbor had vanished. The ghost fleet was gone. Even the enormous eye beneath the sea had disappeared. Only the Mercy Queen remained, floating silently, broken, empty. Nobody celebrated. Captain Rourke was gone. The bridge floor still held the jagged hole where he had disappeared. Far below, there was nothing. Not darkness, not water, only ordinary steel, as if the ship had quietly healed itself the moment its keeper was gone. The older Jonah stood at the edge of the hole for a very long time. "Finally," he whispered. "He did it!" The older Reeves slowly shook his head. "No, he delayed it." The brass pocket watch in my hand stopped ticking. The hands settled forever at 3:15. 1 minute later than before. Only 1 minute. The older Jonah stared at it. His expression became impossible to read. It moved. It only moved 1 minute. He nodded slowly. That's 1 minute longer than anyone ever managed. The Coast Guard cutter Halcyon appeared through the morning fog. This time, its engines made noise. Its wake disturbed the water. Its crew looked frightened. Human. Real. Commander Reeves's radio crackled. "Halcyon to boarding team." Silence. Then, "Jonah?" I almost cried when I heard the real voice. Not perfect. Not calm. Shaking. Alive. "This is Jonah." The reply came instantly. "Thank God." The rescue boat reached us within minutes. Real hands grabbed ours. Real ropes. Real fear. Nobody smiled. Nobody waved. Every rescuer looked at the Mercy Queen as if they couldn't understand what they were seeing. Neither could we. As we climbed down the pilot ladder, I looked back one last time. The older survivors remained aboard. The older Jonah. The older Leah. The older Reeves. The older Moss. The older Perez. They stood silently on the deck, watching us leave, watching themselves survive. I shouted, "Come with us!" The older Jonah smiled, a tired, peaceful smile. "We already did." The rescue boat pulled away. Nobody aboard spoke. The Mercy Queen drifted farther into the fog. Smaller, smaller, smaller. Then, the older survivors raised one hand, not waving goodbye, saluting. Commander Reeves returned the salute, without speaking, without asking why. The fog closed. The Mercy Queen disappeared. Gone. Just like that. No radar ever found it again. No satellite image captured it. No wreckage floated ashore. Officially, there had never been a ship. The investigation lasted 9 months. The Coast Guard interviewed every survivor, dozens of times. Psychologists blamed hypothermia, sleep deprivation, mass hallucination, electromagnetic interference. No explanation satisfied anyone, especially Captain William Mercer. Captain Mercer refused to retire. Every year, on October 6th, he sailed 6 miles east of Blackwater Point, stopped his ship, waited until 3:14 a.m., then left. He never explained why. Leah resigned from emergency medicine. She couldn't stand hearing families say, "I just want one more conversation." She always answered the same way. "No, you don't." Perez destroyed every photograph on her phone, except one. Nobody knew why. Years later, she finally showed it to me. The picture had been taken before we boarded the Mercy Queen. It showed the 6 of us standing on the cutter. Commander Reeves, Leah, Perez, Moss, Baird. Nothing unusual, except standing far behind us, at the very edge of the dock. Manwan Chandium, one, was Captain Elias Rourke, smiling, waiting. The photograph had been taken 3 hours before we ever found the Mercy Queen. Moss never recovered his memory completely. He remembered his wife. He remembered her face. He never remembered her name. When people asked why he always wore his wedding ring, he simply smiled and answered, "So I don't forget someone loved me." Commander Reeves was promoted the following spring. He never mentioned the Mercy Queen again, not publicly, but every new rescue swimmer assigned to his station received exactly one piece of advice. If a ship asks for permission to dock, he always said, "Let someone else answer." Nobody understood the joke. He never explained it. As for me, I left the Coast Guard 2 years later. People assumed the incident broke me. They were wrong. It changed what I listened to. Sometimes, late at night, I still wake before dawn. Not because of nightmares. Because of silence. The ocean has a sound. You stop noticing it after enough years. Until one morning, it disappears. Whenever that happens, I know something out there is listening. The brass pocket watch remains locked inside a safe deposit box. I've tried throwing it away 3 times. Each time, it returns. Always clean, always dry, always waiting. The hands have never moved again. Still, 3:15. 3 winters after the Mercy Queen disappeared. A fishing trawler operating nearly 200 miles north of Newfoundland reported seeing an abandoned cargo ship. The captain described rusted cranes, broken railings, a black hull, no crew, no lights, no movement. The Coast Guard searched for 48 hours. They found nothing. The official report ended with a sentence that almost no one noticed. One crew member insisted the unidentified vessel appeared to be drifting away from shore, despite all currents flowing in the opposite direction. Away, not toward. Last month, I received an envelope with no return address. Inside, there was only a single photograph. The Mercy Queen, floating beneath a clear blue sky. No fog, no darkness, no ghost fleet. Captain Rourke stood on the bridge wing. He looked younger, healthier, almost happy. On the back, someone had written only one sentence. 1 minute was enough for them. No signature, no explanation. I keep telling myself someone is playing a cruel joke. That someone somehow found my address. That someone edited the photograph. That there is a rational explanation. Then, every now and then, at exactly 3:15 a.m., the pocket watch inside the safe ticks. Once, only once, and somewhere far beyond my bedroom window, too far to belong to any harbor, I hear a ship's horn. Just one long note. Never closer, never farther away, always the same. Sometimes, if the night is completely still, another horn answers, much farther out, almost beyond hearing. And every single time, I find myself wondering the same thing. Not whether the Mercy Queen survived, not whether Captain Rourke is still out there, but whether, for 60 short seconds, the oldest lighthouse in the world shone brightly enough to make something unimaginably ancient lose sight of humanity, or whether it merely closed one eye, only to open another, somewhere else, because every year, more ships disappear without explanation. More radios transmit voices from impossible places. More people swear they saw lights where no lighthouse has ever stood. And sometimes, very late at night, if you listen to marine emergency frequencies, between the static, between the weather reports, between the ordinary voices of ordinary sailors, another transmission still breaks through. Clear, calm, professional. This is Mercy Queen. A pause, long enough to make you believe the signal has ended. Then, we are no longer requesting permission to dock. Silence. One final breath. We're looking for the next lighthouse. End.